Welcome to the CFB Paint Podcast. We're here with the preview of Championship Week. Before we get into that, we're going to do a review of the regular season what do we call it? Our win totals draft. We're going to tell you who the loser was. We're not going to tell you the punishment, but we'll get there pretty soon. And then we'll talk about how we did how our picks did straight up, and how our picks did against the numbers last week. Then we'll talk about our picks for Championship Week and our picks against the numbers this next week. So let's move quickly into the win totals draft for this week. I'm going to pull that up real quick. Brian, what were your thoughts while your team went 9-1? I'll pull it up while you're going.
I knew going into this week, in my head, I'm pretty sure I had to get 6 wins to secure the victory. So I'm sitting pretty. I think Friday night I've got 4 wins. And I'm going, man, 2 wins on Saturday, and I can, sit back and gloat for a year and be the champion. But ultimately, we talked in our previous podcast about how last week there was a lot of upset bids, but not a lot of upsets. That bodes well for this sort of draft, where usually you're picking teams that are going to be front runners. So you're picking a Florida State or a Michigan. James Madison is able to go 11-1 on the year. Things went according to plan, and fairly early on into Saturday, I was able to relax and know, okay, I'm not going to have a snake bitten. Like last year, I had a 2-8 last week of the season. I'm not having the same thing this year. It's gone really well. So 9-1's a strong finish and gets me close to 100 wins. Couldn't quite crash that mark, but feeling really good. Feeling really good about 98 and think it's going to be tough to beat in the future.
Yeah, you average 9.8 wins. You go 98-22 on the season. That's pretty darn good. Last year I was the winner. I think I had 93 wins, 92 wins, something like that.
It's right in that range. I would say it was closer to mid, so it might have been 93 or 94.
But well done. You had one team that was at 7 wins, and then only 3 that were below 9. So that's pretty awesome. I'm looking at me. I come in second place with 90 points. I kind of had bottom of the barrel and top of the barrel, and that's what kind of helped me along. I have almost I think I'm minus Mark. I have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 teams that are below 9 wins, that are 8 or below even, and that's not where you want to be looking in our marks. So you want to be in that 9-win thing. So I had 2 or 4 top teams. I had 2 undefeated teams and 2 teams that only had 1 loss on the year. So those teams ended up carrying me to be successful. Grateful I picked out Washington and Liberty in that 5th and 6th round. Great picks for me, and allow me to stay where I'm at. Mark, I go 6-4 on the week. Mark goes 7-3. Losses for Kansas State. They looked kind of rough in that game. I'm not gonna lie. Air Force and Texas Tech, but has 88 wins. And Steve has another rough week, a little bit more, and goes 5-4, and is at 83 wins. So he loses for the 2nd year in a row. We're going to promise punishments. Brian, you and I need to come up with it this week.
Yeah, no, we'll make sure to reveal it on air when Steve is able to be here with us. But he's not getting away with it this year like he did last.
How do you think he feels about this right now? Do you want to hear your thoughts?
It's funny because among the 4 of us, we view him as probably the most informed. I think he pays the closest attention to the sport. We all pay pretty close attention, more than average, I'd say. But yeah, there's a lot of times where in my head, I'll bounce something off Steve because I'm going to defer to his knowledge on a certain coach or scheme or something like that.
I don't defer,
but for whatever reason, he can't predict
when
anything.
To go for it and when to kick field goals. I don't defer to that on that.
No. But for some reason, he can't predict anything. It's I feel like analyzing what's happened, he can do just fine. And then when it comes to projecting going forward, somehow there's a huge disconnect between those two. It's not a great place to, not a great feeling, I'm sure. But also 83 wins for our worst of the 4 of us is that's pretty decent. There's a pretty high floor on this season, and part of it, we've talked about how few upsets there have been relatively, but you think you're going to pull up the last year's draft.
I don't know if I have it up. I don't have it up from last year.
I'll drop you a link in here. But yeah, I just
Nope.
think that's would have been enough to, I think, keep him out of last place last time. Just not enough to do it this year.
Yep. And if you look at teams that we didn't pick this year, I didn't go back through and update this list, but UNLV does really well again. New Mexico State, Missouri at 10 wins. Miami, Ohio, I think is at 10 wins. UTSA is at 9 wins. So like, there's some teams that we missed on this list. We'll see how it goes
that's the
next year.
crazy
See
thing.
if we can
There's
rectify
still
it. It's also going to be a lot different because of the fact that you have more teams in different conferences that you didn't have originally, and we're gonna have to adjust for that. And what kind of schedule are they actually playing versus like, oh, you're in the conference, but you don't really have a division, so let's look at your schedule. So it'll be interesting.
yeah.
I think we'll have a way worse year next year.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance of that. I dropped you the link for the last year one in our little chat we have going here. 82 wins or 83 wins for Steve would have put him in second place last year.
All right, that does it for our wins totals draft. Now we're going to jump into our straight up picks from last week and review how we did. Real quick, looking at it across the board, I went 17-6, and Brian went 20-3. Looking at my misses, I picked UTSA over Tulane. I kind of thought Tulane would kind of fall apart again. I had Louisville beating Kentucky. That didn't happen. I'm looking through this. Other losses. Kansas State beating Iowa State. That didn't happen. But yeah, there's some problems in there. And Nebraska beating Iowa. Just unfortunate. But Brian, you only missed 3.
Yeah, decent week. I made the mistake of going against Dave Doran this year, which, sometimes you just bang your head against the wall and go against the same team over and over again, and that's one that me and others who have been called out by Dave Doran have gone and done. But they get a really notable win over UNC. Maybe Drake May's last game at UNC. We'll see if he sticks around for a playoff or not, or a bowl game or not. But big win over a good opponent, and finishing the season 9-3 on the year.
Yeah. We both called Michigan wrong. We both called Ohio State to win that game. Do we have BYU on this one as well, or no? Oh, yeah, we did. But we also put Oklahoma State, and they ended up winning. So,
just didn't expect it to be nearly as close. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to straight up pick 'em for next week. It's championship week, so we don't have nearly as many games, but we'll work our way through it. All right. We got New Mexico State versus Liberty. Brian, who you got?
I've got Liberty to finish out undefeated. This is going to be a team that's going to get their chance to claim a national title if they win their bowl game, because they're not going to the playoff if they win this one. But give me Liberty.
I'm too along with you on Liberty. The question is how long does Coach stay there? How long does Jamie Tidwell stay there? He's brand new, right? He just came from Coastal Carolina, but still kept it going well, and he was good at Coastal Carolina. So
yeah.
Yeah. All right, Oregon. Should we leave Oregon and Washington? Let's leave Oregon and Washington and go next.
Okay.
For those, for our viewers, if they care, Steve picks Liberty. Oklahoma State at versus Texas for the Big 12 championship. Can Texas put its stamp on the opportunity to get into the playoff? And I think they do emphatically. Actually, I don't think they emphatically. I think they do it, but it's close. I think one of the things that Texas has struggled with is tackling out in space. And you got Ollie Gordon, who's an issue there. So I think their offense is going to have to do enough to make this win happen. I think the line is, I'm thinking like 7 points, but it's going to be a close game. But give me Texas to win. Brian, who you got?
I'm also going with the Longhorns. I think the line I'm looking at is 14.5. That's on Sports Line. So it's a little bit wider.
Wow. That sounds way high.
Yeah, so it seems like something you might want to take advantage of. But I
think I will.
I think Texas is peaking at the right moment. They played really good football last week, and it'd be very Texas of them to trip here and keep themselves out. But I don't think they'll do it. Like, I think they're a new Texas this year. So give me the Longhorns.
That's dirty, Brian.
Hey, I could say it about a lot of programs. It's hard to get to the top. It's really, really hard to get to the top. but
Yeah.
I think they keep themselves in the conversation. They wait for help, and we'll see.
All right. Miami versus of Ohio, not the Hurricanes. They don't make conference championships. We already know that. Miami of Ohio versus Toledo. Who do you got, Brian?
I've been really impressed with Miami of Ohio this year. Like they were one who I didn't expect to have the season that they did, especially watching all the talk going into week 1 of who's the real Miami against Miami Hurricanes, and that went the way that everyone would have expected it to. But they've had a really, really good season. Still, I'm going to go with Jason Candles, man, in Toledo. They just kind of just the class of that conference and have been for a minute. They've risen to that level and they're sustaining it. I think they'll finish it out with a win.
I too agree with you on this one. I'm picking Toledo, but every time I pick Toledo to cover, they don't cover. So I'm picking Toledo, but I think it'll be close. All right, Boise, UNLV. Who you got, Brian?
I'm really torn by this because there's something about these teams when their head coach is fired that they they band together and they have their best performance because they're just playing for each other. Like this is our last ride, whatever, and they stick together with those coaches. You just know like this is all parting from here. So they're super locked in. They're super together. So there's part of me that wants to choose Boise State, but I'm gonna stick with UNLV. They're playing in Las Vegas. I don't think that helps Boise State any um, in terms of where the championship game is being played. Yeah, give me the Rebels.
I feel like this Boise State team is not has played a lot better than it had in the last or at the beginning of the year. They've won consistently to finish out the year. I mean, at one point in time they were like 4-4, I want to say, and they ended up like 7-4, or I can't remember 7-5. But I gotta go with Boise. I'm riding with them, so they've been doing okay even when their coach got fired after a win. So, um, let's do SMU and Tulane, Brian. Oh, I'll go first. How about that?
Yeah, go for it.
So SMU's quarterback gets hurt this last week. I think this makes the pick really easy, and I'm picking Tulane. So, Brian, who you got?
I just think Tulane really likes to let teams hang around and flirt with victory, and SMU's a good enough team and well enough coach team that if you let them do it, they might bite you. I'm gonna go ahead and roll with the Mustangs. They get the conference win on the way out of the conference. That's what I'm calling.
Despite their quarterback being carted off last game.
I mean, injuries happen, but we'll see. We'll see what the next guy can do. The line for this is surprisingly not more than one score, and I think
Yeah.
that's telling, especially for a Tulane team who lets everybody creep close to a win. So it's got. I mean,
All right.
I've been more sure of things for sure, but I'm gonna go with SMU.
We haven't been telling people Steve's picks, but Steve picked Texas, Toledo, UNLV, and Tulane. Um, he's not here. He doesn't get to be a part of this. I don't feel like it's not fair. He's on vacation. Why should he get the glory?
We definitely don't let him claim the win if he has the best record next week.
Yeah, we're not even going to repeat what he had. App State and Troy. Who you got, Brian?
I'm sticking with the Troy Trojans. I think two good teams. I just think Troy's better.
Yeah, Troy's a touchdown favorite. They probably should be more, in my opinion. App State's got lucky that they've had some wins that they had, honestly. Got pushed to the brink against Coastal Carolina. Kind of backed into this game when Coastal Carolina lost. So, I mean, Michigan and Iowa. Now we start getting to the real ones. Is my turn to go first? Let's see. Iowa's offense is phenomenal, and I think it's going to give Michigan a really hard time. I know Michigan wins this big. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, 3-score spread tells you everything you need to know about this one. What I would give to see Iowa win this game and the chaos ensue from nobody from the Big Ten making it into the playoff after you've had two of the best teams all year. It would be quite a sight, but it's not going to happen. Michigan is going to dominate this game, and they're going to roll into that number 2 seed, waiting for whoever's at the number 3 spot for the playoff.
What if Iowa's just been like keeping all their offensive hidden for this entire year just to show it all now?
Have they been hiding it all and making sure that it stays with their third string quarterback? Because
Yes,
Kate
exactly.
McNamara's not there. Spencer Petras isn't there. It's all Deacon Hill at this point, and if that's what you've been designing all year, you are more clever than Connor Stallions, that's for sure. So, uh, I would love to see it. I just don't see it
All
happening.
right. Let's go UGA Bama. I'm gonna pick this one myself first. Oh no, it's your turn to pick first, isn't it? Go, Brian. Who you got?
It is, and I think it's Georgia, and I think they actually win pretty handily. I get that they've had some games where, well, by some games, I think about Georgia Tech and Auburn specifically, where teams played them closer than they should. I just think in all the right places where these matchups go head to head, Georgia's got the edge over Bama. I think they're gonna be able to run the ball really well. I think Carson Beck is playing still really good football. He's got his tools back on the outside. Brock Bowers has been back for a little bit now, and I struggle. I don't know. It's weird seeing go the way that Georgia Tech moved the ball and thinking, well, how has nobody else moved the ball like this throughout the year? Missouri did it, but like very, very few teams did. Um,
Auburn did too, a little bit.
Auburn ran the ball right. Like Peyton Thorne ran for over 100 yards, I think. Um,
Yeah.
I just think this is going to be two teams that are similar enough, and Alabama's not going to be able to score enough is going to be the problem here.
Has I think Bama's won the last three meetings between these two teams, and I'm picking Bama to win it again.
Well, they
It's
didn't
gonna
win last
throw.
year. Oh, they didn't make it to the title game last year. I'm stupid.
No,
Go ahead.
yeah. So they won. They played them. They played them in the SEC championship game and the national championship game 2 years ago. Is that right?
Uh, I think that was 3 years ago. I think that was Tua.
3 years ago. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm picking Bama to win. We'll see. But
It's not a bad pick. It's super possible, and it's another scenario that I really want just for the chaos.
exactly. All right. Um, which one do you want to pick first, Brian? Or who's supposed to pick? Oh, I'm supposed to pick.
uh,
So which one do you want to pick first? Oregon, Washington, or Louisville, FSU?
Louisville, FSU.
All right. So we'll go Oregon, Washington next. I have said I think Dan Lanning's a great coach. I think that team is multifaceted, although and like that they have a better defense. He's got a better defensive mind. But Washington has shown that they can win games in multiple ways, whether it's relying on their defense, whether it's running the ball, whether it's passing arm with Penix. But give me Oregon to win this game.
Yeah, I'm totally on the same page. I just think Oregon's playing at such a high level right now. Like we haven't seen weakness in them in such a long time, and it's a long season. It's hard not to show signs of it, and it reminds me a lot of Oregon. I mean, I think they're a better version, but like last year after Georgia, like it was just like, oh, this is just a different team, and we'd seen shakiness against Texas Tech, and they lose that game against Washington, but they've been so consistent and so good for so long. And Washington has just gotten shakier and shakier. I think Oregon can win this one. So I'm taking the Ducks.
All right. Our last game of title week, Louisville versus FSU. Brian, who you got?
Yeah, this is the one that every team that's waiting in line is going, hey, FSU's got a hurt quarterback. Really, do we think they'd head-to-head win against the other teams? No, but they play in the ACC, so they have to beat Louisville. I've got FSU winning this game, and I think a big part of it is the defense and the ability to limit what Louisville does. Specifically, I think about Jamari Thrash. He's an excellent wide receiver. Florida State has done a really good job of limiting wide receivers, both on the outside and in the slot. I think you've had two all year that have had 100-yard games against you. One is Brian Thomas, who's an awesome wide receiver from LSU, but most of his yards come on a 75-yard bomb that is against your freshman in garbage time. The other one's
In
Jacoby
his first
George.
game. True freshman.
Yes, true freshman. Their first game, 18-year-olds had no snaps before this game. The other one is Jacoby George from Miami, who had a couple big catches. But again, Jacoby George, probably the third option on that team. Probably the second option out wide. Colby Young would be the main one out there, and then Restrepo is their main target out of the slot. Florida State shuts down lead receivers. Neighbors would have been the top guy for LSU. They targeted him all game. Couldn't do anything there. I think you're able to shut that down. You've done enough in the run game to limit some teams. And Mike Norvell, I believe in him as a offensive play caller to scheme up some points. Enough to get on the board, enough to do some damage. I've got Florida State getting the win and getting into the playoff.
I'm gonna pick Florida State. I am going to be saying my prayers to make sure this happens. I'm scared, but we'll see. All right, we have our picks for championship week. Join us with let us know what your picks are this week. Let us know where we're wrong. Tell us where we're right. Let's have some conversations in the comments. But now it's time to go and check our streak against the numbers. Brian, how did you do last week? Because I did darn awful.
Last week I had some embarrassing ones.
I
The
bet
TCU.
you weren't as embarrassing as I was.
Well,
so.
we'll let you get to your embarrassment. TCU Oklahoma could have looked a lot worse than it did. I took TCU at plus 11.5, which they did not cover. It looked like Oklahoma should have, blown them out by 40, but kept on letting TCU stay close-ish. I never really felt like the results of that game was in doubt, but they would still march down the field with ease. And it was just like, well, just shut the door on these guys. Like, shut it. Like, it was way too long into the game before you're able to start turning to backups. I mean, it's like if you score 69 points, you should have gone to backups, late in the third quarter at latest. But wasn't the case. Ohio State +4 versus Michigan. I predicted Ohio State to win that game, predicted them to cover the point spread. They did neither. Michigan gets the win, so that's a loss for me. Kansas -6 against Cincinnati. That one hit for me in a big way. I think I was 40-something to 16, maybe 49 to 16. Texas A&M LSU, I took the over 66.5. They had 72. I was really betting on Jaden Daniels wanting to win that Heisman, and he looked like he did, so that helped me out a lot. Purdue -2.5 at Indiana. I thought that was going to be a lot easier cover than it was, but they end up covering nonetheless. So that's the third win for me. And then the last loss on the day is I took Ole Miss -11.5 in the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. They win 17-7. What an ugly football game. And it serves me right. The one time I'm going to go with Ole Miss that I will lose with it, because I've been going against them all year, predicting against them to lose straight up, but also lose against the spread. And as soon as I flip script, they do what I had thought they were going to do all year. So 3-3 on the week, not too bad.
For those who care, Steve went 4-2. I'm not going to go over his picks or whatever else. He can tell you in his next game. He did message me them, but I don't feel like reading them. So sorry, Steve. Hope you enjoy Panama City Beach. I go 1-5 this week with a beautiful. I called the Georgia Tech under 60. Thank you. And then also on from there. I thought Georgia Tech would get dismantled. Georgia was favored by 24, and I thought they'd cover. Nope, they do not cover. BYU, Oklahoma State, I had the under 57. BYU's offense all of a sudden decides to show up in this game. I don't know what they were thinking. 74 points get scored in double overtime in this one. So thanks, BYU. Anyways, Bama, I had them covering over Auburn. I thought they were superiorly much the better team. I am not going to be rooting and betting against you again, Hugh Freeze. So Colorado, Utah. Utah is the better team, and their offense has shown up a ton and decided not to really show up this last week. And I had Utah covering the 21 points. So poor decision for me. I kind of made that last second switch to have Utah cover, but still made the wrong decision. And the heartbreaker, the lowest closing total ever in the last 20 years, Iowa, Nebraska at 26.5. I'm like, we're going to hit the over. And at halftime, we're at 17 points. We're going to hit the over. Nope. They score 6 points the rest of the game, and there's 23 points in the game. So they hit the under. It was a rough week for me. So hopefully it'll be better. Brian, let me know your picks for this week.
Yeah, coming up for championship week. I took UNLV in the straight up against Boise State, so I'm also taking them in the points +2.5. They're a slight dog in Las Vegas. Can that be right? Did I have that correct? I'll double check
UNLV
that.
is a dog, 2.5 point dog. Yep.
Yeah, I'm taking it. Georgia -6 against Alabama. I'm taking Georgia to win by more than that. I think they'll win by multiple scores. Win by double digits. I just think Alabama's going to have a real hard time scoring against them, and I think Georgia won't have the same issue. I'm taking Florida State -2.5 against Louisville. This is probably the foolhardy fan in me, but I believe in this team and kind of the way that they operate. They play for 60 minutes, and that bodes well usually in the fourth quarter, where they're not only able to win games, but sometimes pump it up to multiple scores, similar to the way they did against Duke in the fourth quarter, against Florida in the fourth quarter. They might be able to wear down. I think they may be able to wear down Louisville in the same way, especially with Jawar Jordan having the injuries that he's had throughout the year. He will slow down as the game goes on, I predict. So that's what I'm anticipating. Iowa plus 23 against Michigan. Michigan should be in health mode. Get out in the lead, then put in some backups and run the ball. I think there isn't an incentive to score a whole lot. I think Iowa might gift Michigan's defense a couple touchdowns. That's the one thing that makes me nervous about this one. But I'm still taking Iowa plus 23 to cover there. SMU, I took them in the straight up, so I'm also taking them here, plus 5.5 against Tulane. Tulane lets people hang close. I feel much more comfortable in the point spread than I do in the overall result, but I think they can get there. And then Texas, Oklahoma State, I'm taking the over 55. Oklahoma State's played in some high-scoring games. Texas has a really potent offense, especially when they finish drives, and last week they finished drives. If they do anything of the same sort, they might go over 55 on their own against Oklahoma State. I think that one's an easy pick for my last one of the 6.
All right. For me, my picks this week, UJ versus Bama, I'm taking the under 54.5. You said you thought it would be hard for teams to score. I think these defenses are good, and I think it's going to be hard for these teams to score. So I think this ends up being a pretty low-scoring game, but I'm taking the under. Oklahoma State are 15-point dogs to Texas. I think their game is going to be a lot closer than people expect it to be. Texas hasn't played phenomenal. They did last week, but in the recent weeks they haven't. And so give me Oklahoma State to keep it close, especially 15 points. I mean, 2 touchdowns. I'll take that.
That's a big spread.
But I will take the over in that game, the over 55.5. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a 30-24, 30-26 kind of game. That puts it in the over. It's going to be close. That line's about right, but I'm taking the over on the 55 as well with you, Brian. Washington, 9.5-point dogs to Oregon. I know I picked Oregon, but give me Washington to cover. I think this is a close game. I think people are looking past Washington. I think Washington is like, we won that game for a reason, and they have a vendetta against them. So I think they want to. But give me the under. I don't think these two teams scores nearly as many points as they did in the first game. The total 67 on this. Give me the under on that one. Last but not least, Michigan and Iowa. Iowa's only had 2 games all season hit the over. This is not going to be one of them. Give me the under. I mean, this game might be 35-0, and it'll still be the under. The line's 35.5, so I'll take it. So those are my 6 picks for the week. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, just excited to get into rivalry week, championship week, and solidify who we have going to this playoff. I don't think there's been a season that I can remember with this much parity going into the playoff. There's a lot of teams who I think if they got in would compete really well, and it's just a matter of who gets in with the space that's left. And there will be drama because some of these games that really, really matter are late on Saturday. So people will be waiting with bated breath long after their game has played to see, did I do enough? Am I going to make it in? So we'll see.
Dude, I cannot come fast enough. I'm like counting down the days of work. I'm like, come on. But we'll have to get together. I think Steve will be back in town too, so we'll see what happens. Maybe we don't. I don't know. We haven't gotten together a lot this week, and it's worked out really well for us. Florida State. Say again?
So it's worked really well for Florida State.
Yeah. I make sure Kyrie, after every prayer during dinner, says, pray for Florida State to win on Saturdays when they play. So it's working.
There you go. That's the key.
All right. Well, for Brian and Corey, Steve from the beach, he'll give you his picks from last week. I promise they're real. I've already seen them. He can tell you how he did. But this is the CFB Paint podcast. Please let us know who you got winning the championships. Let us know where we're right. Let us know where we're wrong. Let us know what lines you bet and which lines we're crazy on. Let's start an argument. We like these. There's plenty of arguments in our household all the time. Considering Dad, was a debater. But anyways, for us 3 or 4, we love you guys. Take care.
Peace.
Love you, Dad.